Hello. Keep it down over there. Yeah, it's a noisy class. Today's the 1400 and or over class, right? No lying, right? Okay. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Okay, so this class is harder than the last class. Look, that's hard, right? Okay, good. So today we're going to talk about 3 games that were played in 2018. Why? I don't know. Because those were the 3 best games according to this lunatic who writes for chess.com. Yeah. That's all that matters, right? Okay. Now, there's hundreds of thousands of games played every year, and most of them we never see. But usually, when grandmasters play a game and it's considered a great game, then we see it. Especially if it's super grandmasters, then we see it anyway. One of these games was played by super grandmasters, and I know the game. The other games I didn't know before I prepared this lecture. I'd heard of them, but I never looked at them. The other one I was watching it live. So. And we're going to do an order from 3 to 1. We're going to count down. We're going to look at 3 games. These were considered the 3 best games. It wasn't by one lunatic, it was by voting. So there's a lot of lunatics, right? Like Derrick Rose. Anybody? No? Remember Derrick Rose? Exactly. He's in the National Basketball Association, the NBA, and he was good like 10 years ago, and now he's not good. And he's going to be in the All-Star game because he's popular. So like maybe these games aren't good, but they're like, ooh, I like, Kramnik, so he wins. Yeah, it's the popularity contest. Okay, so the 3rd best game of the year, as by voting, was this one, Rufus and Doofus. Okay, notice white's much higher rated than black, and white won. Shocking, right? No, are you shocked? Okay, so they played a Petrov. You guys heard of the Petrov before? Yeah. All right, that's it. And then in beginners tournaments and weak scholastic players, you often see knight takes e4, which actually may not lose the game. And here they play knight f6, and then the thing spins. And then knight c6 wins the queen, confusing the audience. Right? Are you confused?
No.
Okay, good. So when grandmasters play, they don't play knight takes e4. If they do, there's another way to play it where it doesn't necessarily lose right away. They play d6, and then they play knight takes e4. Okay, and now if queen e2, you can play queen e7. Okay. So it used to be everybody played d4 every game, and then they were like, wait, knight c3, let's play that. Okay, but this guy's old school, he played d4. Okay, pretty good. All right. d5, and I used to play the Petrov before you guys were born, so I've had black in this position. Now I'm going to show you something you don't know. Okay, now here it's white's turn, because I said so. Okay, you guys remember that position? All right, let's pretend we play an exchange French. Isn't pretending fun? Right? Now let's pretend, I don't know, white goes here and black goes here. Whose turn is it? White. And when it's white's turn here, if I went to some grandmasters and I said, in this exchange French, is white getting a big advantage? They would say, no, this is equal. Grandmasters don't play the exchange French. Grandmasters play the advanced French, and we play knight c3, and we play knight d2. If you look at 2 grandmasters play, knight c3, knight d2, e5. You're not going to see e takes d5, e takes d5. That's very rare at the super grandmaster level, almost unheard of. Then here. So at the grandmaster level, grandmasters are like, this gives white no advantage, I wouldn't do this. However, if it's black's turn to move, and black plays here, now the grandmasters want white. That's the position we just looked at from the Petrov. You agree?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this position with white, grandmasters are like, no, I don't want this position. This position is like, oh, okay, fine, great. So the argument is it's worse to have the knight here than here because I'm going to put pressure on it and take it. Okay, example. You want to be the world heavyweight champion of boxing, and you'll get paid a lot of money if you are. And you're like, that guy's the world heavyweight champion. Well, I don't want to talk to him. He's scary looking. Leave me alone. Okay? And you're like, all right, and you've never talked to the world heavyweight champion or seen him, right? Okay. But it could be you're fighting him in the ring. And if you win, you're the world heavyweight champion, right? That's how you would become that, right? Now you're like, great, now I'm going to beat him up and I'm the world champion. Okay? That's sort of the same situation. This knight is fine, and when it's here, now he's in your territory, now you can go get him. And you'll be the world champion because you take his knight. So most weaker players are always moving forward whenever they can. And then they're like, rawr, I am the best. And then when their opponent takes it, they're like, aw. So it's a double-edged sword. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. Grandmasters believe it's bad for black to go here. That now white might get an advantage, whereas here white would never get an advantage. Too boring. Okay? I'm not saying I agree with that, but that's what happened, and here's the position. Okay? That's the Petrov. If you have white and you're a super grandmaster and you play e4, you could have this position a lot, because that's the Petrov. Okay, so white played bishop d3, putting pressure on the knight, and then white plays c4. Obviously, if black's knight is here, that's not much of a problem. But now, okay, pawn's hanging, and then the knight's hanging, right? Okay, so it's here, right? Queen b3. I faced knight c3 a lot when I played the Petrov. I had black in a Petrov. I had this position all the time. Queen b3, I don't think I've ever faced that. I don't think so when I played the Petrov. Now, the point of queen b3 isn't to take this pawn, because you can't take that pawn. Because if you play pawn takes pawn, and queen takes pawn, then bishop takes pawn check, wins your queen. You agree? Yeah, right? No?
Yeah.
Okay. But if this bishop moves, I'll take this pawn. If the knight goes here, then I'll take that pawn again, because bishop takes pawn doesn't win my queen. So it sort of stops this, it stops this, and the queen's putting pressure on the 2 points here. The queen b3 is a good move. Takes. Now knight d7. White has an isolated pawn, but black's bishop is here, not being able to move, and white has pressure on f7. Now the knight's here, and white's threatening it. So they trade. Okay. Now white has a lead in development, because white not only has 3 pieces out to 2, but white's rook is on the open line, and black's rook is, not so good. And the queen and bishop are lined up perfectly against f7. Okay, queen b6, trading queens. White's like, I don't want to trade queens, I want to mate you. And black said, no talking, right? Okay. Queen takes b2. That's the safest move you've ever seen in your life? No, that's very dangerous. And black's like, I calculated it, I'm up a pawn. Because my queen can go here if you attack it, and I'm up a pawn. So I win. And you have 2 isolated pawns. And white's like, this is the 3rd best game of the year, don't you realize that? Is that what happened? No. Maybe later happened. b1, queen a3, queen c2. White doesn't want to trade queens. White likes this queen where it is. Right over here. Now, white's bishop is pointing to the king's side. White's queen's pointing to the king's side. White's bishop's pointing to the king's side. My knight can go to g5. I can do a rook lift. So I'm going to attack your king. And the only way for black to have a good position is to stop the attack. And then later on, black has an extra pawn, as we noticed. Knight d5, blocking the bishop, although I'm defending the king a little bit. b3, queen a4 is the only square for the queen. Bishop takes. Knight g5 with obvious threats. No?
Yeah.
Okay. So threatening mate, g6. Knight takes h7. Now, why do sacrifices work and why do they don't work? If you're a super grandmaster, They work because you calculated and calculated and calculated, and you're right. And the reason you calculated is because it made sense to you to sacrifice. It doesn't always make sense, but there's 4 pieces over here. And as you're going to point out, if he takes the knight, rook check wins the queen, right? So he's like, man, that's a free pawn. I'm going to attack your king. I'm attacking your rook now. You get all your pieces on the queen's side. I'm the best. Bishop f5, attacking white's queen, getting his bishop developed. Knight f6 check. Bishop h6 check. Before black gets his rook out and gets his queen back into the game, we're going to checkmate black. That's the idea. Now I assume he took the bishop, took the knight. Okay, I would have taken the bishop. I mean, I'd still lose. Oh, taking the bishop loses for your reason. The rook h3 check and queen takes queen.
But then there's the bishop. Oh wait, no, yeah.
Yeah, I move my queen away from your bishop. Yeah. So if you take my bishop, I check, and then I take your queen. So he took the knight. Okay. g4. I was thinking queen d2, queen g5 mate. And in fact, oh, I see why I'm wrong. I guess he plays bishop here, and then his king can run away. Okay. So he played g4, Matt Larson style. What does g4 threaten? What's the threat?
The bishop.
Close. Even better than a bishop.
Oh, g5.
g5 checkmate. Probably should stop that, right? Mm-hmm. So I assume he took the queen. I played bishop f4. Let's take the queen. Now, it's mate if I'm correct. I'm pretty sure I'm correct. Check. If bishop f5, it's mate, right? Mm-hmm. And if bishop f4, it's the same mate, but it took me one extra move. Yeah. Okay, so taking the queen gets mated. So he played bishop f4, blocking that f file. So he's still threatening the queen, and he's threatening the bishop, and he's blocking the f file. Good defense. Good job. Queen c7, confusing the audience.
Oh.
The obvious idea is if you take, I play mate.
Yeah.
The bishop on f4 was stopping g5 mate. Also, I'm threatening mate.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty cool move. Queen c7. This is only the 3rd best game of the year. Now, you were here for the first lecture, and you remember Steinitz von Bardeleben, and I was like, white castled, and black didn't castle, and black's king is no good. Black did castle this game, but his king is no good. It looks like he didn't castle. And he's putting his queen on the queen's side, his rook on a8's on the queen's side, so attack's working. Bishop takes h6. Now, queen e7's not mate, because king g7. So I assume queen e5, king has to go to g5. h4, got 2 legal moves. I don't like either one of them. He took on h4. What if he takes on g4? Okay, so I think it's rook g3 and queen e2. Although I can't see the mate. I sense there's a mate. I don't see a checkmate. I just feel a checkmate. I also think queen g3 and rook e5 wins. All right, let's see the mate. The computer has to tell us the mate. Mate and 8.
Oh.
Yeah, didn't I say rook g3 and queen e2?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is rook g3 and queen e2. Yeah, and the reason I didn't see the mate was in this position, the best move is king g2. Oh, now it's queen f3 with rook h1 mate idea, but this is also mate with queen h1 idea. Yeah, and it's mate in a few moves. Okay. Okay, so with engine it was easy. Although obviously with the king there, that's no good. Okay, so he took the h pawn. Or he took the g pawn. Wait, which one did he take? The h pawn.
Yeah.
Okay, took the h pawn. Rook h3 check. Obviously, if you take the rook, queen g3 mate. If you take on g4, queen g3 mate. So I guess he played king g5. See, good guess, right? Okay. Queen e7 check. Now, if I play queen e3 check, you'll play king f6. If I play check, and you play pawn to f6, and I play queen e3 check, you won't play king f6. You want that pawn on f6 so black can't get his king out of there. So if he goes here, then it's going to be mate. Okay, so I assume he played king g4, but that's also mate, queen h4 mate. Yeah. I think he resigned after queen e7. Yeah. So after king g4, this is mate. And after king f4, this is the same mate. And after f6, never play f6, then this is mate. So black thought it was a good idea to get his queen over here. And then white said, I'm going to checkmate you, and black's queen wasn't involved in the game, and this rook never moved. Conversely, white's pieces were mating, and his rook was here stopping the black king from escaping. So white used all his pieces to mate, and black used all his pieces to defend his a-pawn. That a-pawn was safe, right? White never took that a-pawn. Yeah. So that was a brilliant game from white, sacrificing all his pieces to make that black king move up, but not good enough to be the top 2 of the year. That was number 3 according to the voters. Pretty good game. Okay, now this game is famous basically because of 2 reasons. Black played the move that you won't believe, and white was Aronian. White's like the top 10 players in the world, and black played an incredible move. So with those 2 things added up, it was voted the 2nd best game of the year. Okay, and I remember watching this game live. It was a very boring Berlin until it wasn't. Now I have to give you some background. Aronian doesn't play e4. And then Aronian's like, I want to play e4 because I want to see what it's like when Kramnik plays the Berlin, because Kramnik's the guy who started the Berlin at the Super GM level in his match with... Before Carlsen. Keep going. Who?
Swilder?
Svidler? Svidler, no good. Somebody good.
Or repeat it again, sorry.
In his match, World Championship match, Kramnik popularized the Berlin in 2000.
Karpov?
Close. Kasparov. And Kasparov didn't win any games against the Berlin. And they're like, ooh, Kasparov can't beat the Berlin, I'll play that. Now everybody plays the Berlin. And all the games are draws. And Aronian's like, let me try to beat the Berlin. I'll try that. So he's white, and he's going to try to beat the Berlin. He plays d3. Most of the Berlin games where they trade queens start with castles. He's like, no, I'm going to beat the Berlin my way. I agree, I think d3 is the right move. Okay. And they played some theoretical line. Okay. Now, Kramnik writes, I want to go here, right? And Aronian plays here. And he says, nope, you're not going to do that. And then Kramnik says, a couple of years ago, I found this idea. And then finally he had the position, and now he played his idea. And I tell all my students the same thing. They don't listen, but I tell them, don't move pawns in front of your king. Okay? If your king is the most important, and the pawns are protecting your king, and you move the pawns, then they're not protecting your king. So if black wants to attack on the king's side, the key move to open the king's side would be to play g4. And if this pawn was here, g4 doesn't open the king's side. Now, if I play g4, I open the king's side. It's open. I can checkmate you, right? So what move did Kramnik play? The most famous move of the year. If you played it and I was your coach, I would yell at you. He prepared this move for 2 years.
G5.
It's a move you would never play because I would yell at you.
G5.
Close. Prepare G5.
H6.
Yeah, but this is a much funnier way to prepare it.
Oh, H5.
That doesn't prepare G5. Defend G5, but don't play H6. You can't think of it because it's so weird. You're like, I'm not thinking of that. That's weird. I'm not doing that. Leave me alone.
Maybe the knight.
Knight H5.
No, that's not weird. Those are normal moves. It's so weird you can't even say it.
Knight takes E4.
Now you're getting too weird. Don't give your knight away for nothing. When you play G4 and they take, okay, you'd like to take with the H pawn, but if you have no H pawn, you could take with something else. Not the knight, not the bishop.
Rook.
The rook.
Rook G8.
Rook G8. Now, I would like to add that I am the world's leading authority on this. So it's amazing I'm lecturing on this. And I'm going to show you what I mean. If you thought Rook G8 was silly looking, let me show you how I play chess. Okay? In 2 rated tournament games against players my own rating in the last 5 years, I've done this. I've had white. And then I think I played E3. And now I played a move very similar to what I just showed you. That's what I did. What did I do with white? I just showed you.
Rook G1.
I played Rook G1. I've played that twice against players of my own rating in slow chess. I'm going to go here.
Oh.
Okay? And I'm going to play for me. My bishop's already here. And I won 1 game and I drew the other game.
Oh.
So that's pretty good. Those guys were my rating. Yeah, I was like, rawr. Yeah. Okay, so I started the trend of playing insane rook move to mate my opponent. Okay, but I'm not Kramnik, so I get no credit. Okay, so Kramnik played Rook G8. And he said, I'm going to go here and mate you. You should put your pawn back here so I can't mate you. Okay. And he can obviously castle queenside later if he wants to. King. Okay. So Rook G8's never been played, obviously, because when I told you to prepare G5, you still couldn't find it. You're like, Rook G8, that's crazy. And Kramnik's like, Rook G8, let's analyze this. So he analyzed it at home with his computer for 2 years. Then he played Rook G8 because he finally got a chance to play it. You have to get the position to play it. I told you guys in the first lecture, there's 3 ways to be good at the opening. You follow the general principles, you take all your opponent's pieces, and you have preparation you know that they don't. Rook G8, he's been waiting to play that, and Aronian's like, Rook G8, what's that? So Kramnik's been analyzing it with his computer and his helpers, and Aronian's like, what's Rook G8? As a result, he gets the smackdown. He plays King H1, try to get off the file. Knight H5, as you suggested earlier. No. G5. Then he takes the pawn because he's unleashing on this knight.
Oh.
Okay. G4. Now, when I tell my students what to do, they're like, I did that and I still lost. So they blame me. Okay. Problem is, you have to rank the importance of what you're supposed to do. You're always supposed to checkmate first. Second, I would take a queen. Most people don't let you checkmate them or win a queen, so you gotta do other stuff like castle and play in the center. In this game, white did things that I would teach and black did things I would not teach. However, black wants to checkmate white. So the stuff I teach doesn't matter because it's checkmate. So it doesn't matter, right? Okay, let me give you an example. You're driving down the road and you hear the police and they pull you over and they say, you were going 100 miles an hour and the speed limit's 25. And you're like, oh. And they're like, well, I don't know what they would do then. 125, they might do something more than what I'm saying. And you would get a very large traffic ticket. And you would be like, $500 ticket, I don't have $500, wah, okay, right? Yeah. Okay, then the same thing happens, but the guy driving is a billionaire, and he's like 500, and he laughs, he's like, I don't care, and he drives away, okay? So in one instance, it was really important that you don't get a $500 traffic ticket because you don't have $500. Now you're going to get in more trouble. In the other one, you're like, 500, I don't care. Okay? In chess, if I say, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, and you say, I checkmated him, I don't care. I'm like, oh, all right. If you checkmated him, it doesn't matter what I tell you. You checkmated him. So Kramnik says, I don't care about general principles. I'm going to checkmate you. Maybe next time you should move some of your pieces out. Okay? I got my bishop over here. I got my bishop over here. I got my queen over here. Got my rook over here. Got my knight over here. And your pieces are over there. I don't care about general principles. I'm going to checkmate you. And Aronian said, no talking. Okay. So he played d4, general principles. Playing in the center, attacking the bishop, blocking it. Okay. Bishop d6, g3, trying to block what black's attack. Bishop takes, pawn takes, queen takes. Man, white's pieces are all in the back rank. Talk about general principles. Okay. Queen d4. Who wants to trade queens, white or black? White, because black's checkmating him, and white's like, let's trade queens. So did Kramnik trade queens? Did black trade queens? No. He played queen e7, exclam. h4, and Aronian's like, what's the problem? The king side's blocked. You'll never mate me. And then Kramnik said, no talking. Attacks the queen moves away, attacks the queen moves away, attacks the queen moves away. f5. He's like, hey, while your pieces are still here, let's attack the king some more. Bishop g5. Now let's look at the computer analysis. If you take, he was going to play knight takes g3 check, bishop d5 check, queen e2. Now that's an attack. Now we're talking, right? Yeah. Rook f2, check, check, mate. Okay. So that was the plan. And Aronian's like, I don't want to get mated. Stop it. So when the pawn's not here, we have bishop d5 check. So Aronian played bishop g5 and said, I'm keeping that pawn there. Rook takes g5, f4. Are these pieces defending white's king? I don't think so. No. And black has pawns coming, the knight coming, the queen coming, the bishop coming, and then I can castle, and here comes my rook. Queen d1, back to where, now can black castle? No, I could castle. I would play here and swing my king under the rook, so it's not through check. No. Okay, played rook d8. Takes. Knight a3, developing his knight finally. Rook d3. Notice Kramnik puts all his pieces into the attack, right? He doesn't just keep moving the same piece over and over again. He moves this, he moves this, he moves this, he moves this. Conversely, Aronian made a lot of queen moves, and it's like on c1. Right? Okay. d1, trading the rooks. Bishop to d5. You can trade rooks as long as I checkmate you. And none of these pieces are defending white's king. The king's just wide open. Never play f3. If he plays rook d3, queen e4 check, the rook's hanging, mate's coming, no defense. So he played f3 now. Takes on f3, sacrificing his rook. If he takes the rook, he didn't take the rook. Queen e4. Black's on a lot of material, but checkmate's more important. And the variation you guys will like, you money back guarantee. Notice how it pins the queen to the king. You see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, check, checkmate. White's pieces are defending his king well. No. So he didn't do that. He played, e takes d5, queen e2. threatening queen g2 mate and queen h2 mate. And we can stop the queen from mating by pinning the queen. Rook e1. Black's down a lot of material and his queen's pinned to his king, right? What's more important than a queen?
Checkmate.
Checkmate. G2 check. And now he resigned, but let's pretend he didn't resign. King h2, obviously if you play king g1, f2 check, right? So here, g1 double, triple check, quadruple check. You have to take it with your king, right?
Yeah.
You agree?
Yes.
Okay. And then I play f2 check. Whew. Whew. And then I take your rook with discovered mate. So this, if you saw this position and you were walking by in a tournament, you'd think, man, white, he's not a good player. That's what you'd think. You'd be like, a guy who has white, I want to play him. He's no good, right?
Yeah.
He's pretty good. He was the second highest rated player in the world for like 3 years. Now he's only like 10th. Okay, so that was the second best game of the year because black sacrificed all his pieces and mated white, and white's 2,800. And white was like, let's put these pieces over here away from my king. Shouldn't white have pawns in front of his king? He does, he has black pawns. Yeah, it's funny, good joke. Yeah, that was the second best game of the year. Now the best game of the year reminds me of another game, okay? And we're gonna look at that game first. It was played 1,000 years ago. It's a very famous game. When I say 1,000, I mean like 20. Okay, and I'll see if I can find the game. Very famous game. We'll do a search of the mega database. Okay, and you guys know the game. Short, Timman, and Nigel Short. He's your favorite player,
No.
right? Have you heard of him or no?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. He played for the World Championship against Kasparov, and then Kasparov had to pick him up at 3:30 because he took him to school. No, you're like, what? And Nigel's currently one of the FIDE vice presidents of chess. But he won a very, very, very famous game against Timman. Very. Okay? And the reason it's famous is because he did a king walk. Okay? And the purpose of the king walk was to give mate. Man, Short beat Timman a lot, right? It's obviously this game. Obviously. Okay? Obviously. And we'll get to the king walk, because that's all I care about. Okay, we'll flip the board. Okay. So they got this position. Okay. This is a very famous game. Okay, so white's dominating. He's got the D file, the 7th rank, black's trapped, but black's pretty solid. And Nigel had the craziest idea ever. Even though all the pieces are on the board, Nigel decided, let's play king h6 and then queen g7 mate. So Nigel played king h6 and then queen g7 mate.
Wow.
Yeah. And the guy's like, oh, yeah. And not only that, you could take the rook, but that doesn't matter because of mate, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, well, wait a minute. Let's stop king h6. Oh, snap. Oh no, he didn't. Yes, he did, right? I mean, this wins in a very simple way, but that's much cooler, right? Yeah, so king g5 resigns. That's a very famous game. If you say king walk or Nigel Short, any grandmaster says Short Timman, even though this was in 1991, it's his most famous win because he walked his king up the board and mated the guy. Okay, very famous. If you turn the engine on, it says mate. Now, the game I want to show you that's the game of the year, according to the lunatics who vote, those lunatics have rights, right? Those guys know what they're talking about. Very reminiscent. Now, white is Tiger, not Tiger Woods. Tiger Hillarp Persson. He's from Scandinavia, and it looks like his opponent was too. And this was played in the Olympiad, where your country plays their country. So this is important. You want your country to win, right? So like your teammates are rooting for you. Okay, so tiger's white. And the game is really boring until it isn't. This was voted the game of the year last year. The boring trading game where they trade all the pieces off. That's the boring game. And you can obviously tell, here comes the white king. You're like, wait, what? How's that king ever move? Right? Although we do have this square, so that's good. Okay, so knight takes would really be boring. So pawn takes, now it's more interesting. And again, every game I've shown you, this lecture, the past lecture, other lectures, when player A checkmates player B, and I'm like, why did that guy get checkmated? I always point out his pieces are way away from his king. Maybe you shouldn't do that. And they do it anyway. Look at white's king, right? Got a bishop right there. Yeah? Let's look at black's pieces. Nowhere near his king. Okay, and somehow they always get checkmated. Amazing. When you want to checkmate your opponent, I would think, do they have pieces near their king? And when they don't, I'm like, all right, maybe I can checkmate them. Now, in the 1800s, 150 years ago, everybody was checkmating everybody. Every game they played for checkmate on move one. Nowadays, when you play for checkmate, it don't work because your opponent shouldn't get checkmated. They did nothing wrong. However, people are like, well, they don't play for checkmate anymore now. Now they're playing for that weak pawn, and I have an isolated pawn, and my bishop is bad, and my rook is passive. And they think about all that stuff, and they forget about their king. In the 1800s, all they thought about was their king. They're like, what's an isolated pawn? What are you talking about? I'm mating him. I don't care about that. Now, they forgot about their king. Because they're like, ooh, he's got a weak pawn. I'm going to win that. And I'm like, you're going to win his weak pawn. You're getting mated. What are you doing? People forget about checkmate because your opponent's not hanging checkmate. Then they forget about it. It's really weird. For example, I'll make up a story. True story. Everybody in your neighborhood is getting robbed. They're all getting robbed. You come home, all your stuff's gone. You call your friend, dude, I came home. My stuff in my house is gone. They're like, me too. Okay? And then people start buying security systems. They're like, I don't want to get robbed anymore. And they buy security systems. And they're like, we got to watch out for all these people robbing us. And so all they do is watch out for people robbing them and buy security systems. Nobody's getting robbed anymore. And they're like, yes, we're the smartest, right? High-fiving each other, patting themselves on the back, right? Then a year goes by, nobody's been robbed for a year. Then they forget about it. Nobody's robbing you anymore. Then the robbers come, they rob you, and you're like, oh, I forgot about the robbers. It's been like a year. I forgot about that. So when you forget about it, then they come back. But when you're like, I'm going to stop all that, roar. Okay, so in chess, they forgot about checkmate because people stopped playing for checkmate. They started to try to win your bishop and fork you and get a better center and get a pass pawn. Nobody thought about checkmate. So now people are getting checkmated again. That's how you beat people, you checkmate them. Okay, here comes the rook, and here comes queen h6. Here comes. We're going to checkmate you. Knight takes because the knight's pinned. See, you see the pin? See? And black's like, I want a pawn. I don't care about checkmate. I'm a pawn up. Okay? And white says, okay, you want a pawn. Good for you. Time to checkmate you. And he's like, oh, you're going to checkmate me. All right, I'll stop it now. H5. Now you can't checkmate me. Haha. You can go here, but then what do you do? Rook d1, threatening the knight. Now the queen's defended. Queen h6. Does white want to trade queens to be down a pawn? No. Queen h6. Rook takes. Queen f6. He's like, all right, you're checkmating me. I'll stop you. Bishop e4. Man, white's getting all his pieces over there to checkmate him. Doing a good job. Now, if it was white's move, white could play rook takes pawn. if you take the rook, queen h7 checkmate. That would sort of explain bishop e4 to you, right? So bishop a6 attacking the rook, because the bishop was terrible on b7. Rook moves, queen g7, and white wants to trade queens, right?
Yeah. No. White.
No, white's down a pawn, white's playing for checkmate. And now, black plays for checkmate. Man, everybody's mean now, right?
Yeah.
And now, remember that game I showed you forgot about?
Yeah.
And this game was played 3 months ago. This game was just played.
Oh.
Bishop takes c6, and black's like, oh boy, I'm gonna mate you. I'm gonna keep checking you till I mate you. Or I'm gonna keep checking you till you mate me. Whichever's funnier. Obviously, if king h3, queen f1 mate. And black was thinking, man, I'm gonna mate white. Look at white's stupid king walking up the board. Remember the Nigel short game?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, oh man, I'm gonna go mate white. Oh, wait a minute. He's like, no, don't play king h6. Don't do it. Man, now if you move your king, I'm going to play king h6. Remind you of anything? So what did black play to stop king h6?
King h7.
King h7, yeah. Now, did you bring your Kleenex? Did you bring it?
No.
Because you're going to cry when you see this move. And this is the move I already showed you in the Nigel game. If you know every game ever played, you can do what they do.
Queen takes f7.
Close.
Ah.
You couldn't be closer. The queen was right and takes was right.
Queen takes g6.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, if you play queen f7 and we trade on f7, king g8 attacks your rook.
Ah.
And now I go here. Yeah. I never get to play moves like that. Okay. Then black resigned. Let's pretend black didn't resign. Pretending's fun. So here, check. You have 3 legal moves. That hangs mate, so that's probably not the right move, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Then you have rook here, and I see a mate in 3. There could be a mate in 2. I just see a mate in 3. There could be a mate in 2. I don't know. Then there's the obvious move, king g8. Remember what I taught you? Use all of your pieces to checkmate. Yeah.
Bishop d5.
Bishop d5. Yeah. And then here, and I see more than one checkmate, but I'll play the one that's mate in 2. That was good king for white. Black thought he was mating white, and white walked his king up the board and mated black. Yeah. So both sides got mated, but black got mated first. And that was in a team tournament. Your teammates like it when you play queen g6 check and it's correct. Then the teammates are like, good job. When it loses your queen and you resign, the team's like, what are you doing? Why are you giving your queen away? But when it works, they're like, wow, what a teammate. And what's funny is, his name is Tiger, so you would think he's playing super aggressive, like is sort of being funny, because his name, he is like that. Tiger's known for like sacking all his pieces and playing crazy. He's a tiger. And he actually has a chess book out about the tiger method. I don't know if we might even sell it here. I don't know. Yeah, it's the tiger, like, rawr, play crazy.
Oh.
Yeah, he's tiger. And black resigned. So both sides getting mated, but actually the reason black's getting mated and the reason white's getting mated is the same reason. White's king is moving up the board. In the end game, move your king up the board, like I told you, right?
Yeah.
But in the opening, when you do that, the guy mates you.
Okay.
So when you do it and the guy doesn't mate you, then you could mate him because your king is coming in with your queen and rook and you're mating him. And so black was like, oh boy, king g2, king f3, king f4, what a dummy. And he's like, oh, wait a minute, that guy's mating me. Yeah. And when Nigel did it, he did it on his own. He's like, oh, let me move my king up the board. This guy had no choice. He was getting checked up the board and he's like, hey, I'm winning instead of losing. Okay. Obviously they calculate and figure it out. And whenever these things happen, not always, but I'm like, hey, who's the better player? Somehow the guy who's winning is always the higher rated player. It's like they have better judgment. Yeah. Like both sides are getting mated, and the guy who calculated better happens to be the higher rated player. And maybe if black was a higher rated player, if he was 2,700, he would have said, if I check him, his king walks up the board and he mates me like Nigel did. I guess I won't do that. And this guy probably thought, his king's walking up the board, I'm going to win.
But he's 2,400.
Right. You're insulting him or saying it's good?
I'm insulting him.
Yeah, I wasn't sure because that's like exactly my rating. I wasn't sure. Right. He's lower rated than his opponent, so his judgment was worse. Yeah. And it could be, let's say white's 2,000. White could be like, oh man, I have to play king g2, king f3, king f4. I'm not doing that. And just does something else and loses. And then the computer says, hey, walk your king up the board and win. And then 2,000 is like, what? And then this guy's like, oh, walk the king up the board and win because he's higher rated. And if black was a 2,800, he would be like, no, white's going to walk the king up and win. I can't do this. That's like the different levels of chess. 2,000 is like, I'm not doing that. And white's like, I'm going to do that. And black's like, I'm not going to allow that. But black wasn't high rated enough to realize he was going to get mated first. And obviously, in this position, when after king g5, now we're getting the deja vu of the king going to h6 and the mates. Because that's what Nigel did. King's pretty safe on h6. The king's on h6, these pieces aren't going to attack it. Because you can't go in this diagonal, it's closed. There's a rook here, there's a rook here, there's a queen here. Once I play king h6, I play rook f4 and queen f6. I mean, I'm going to mate you. So he stopped it, but too late, because I have queen takes g6 check. Too late. That was the winning move that Nigel could have played when the rook was here. Then it's easily winning because it's pinned, but Timman resigned before that happened. This guy let it happen because it was a queen sacrifice, right? Yeah. And then he's like, oh. And chess is a very interesting game. If white doesn't play queen g6 check, he doesn't see it, he doesn't want to sack his queen. Well, maybe he loses. Black's going to play rook takes g3. If it's black's move, black wins.
Yeah.
So you got to watch it. So if black doesn't see queen g6, he might have thought, I'm winning, my teammates love me. And then here he went, aw, my teammates hate me again. So when there's checks and captures in the position, you can't miss them. Then you lose games. So a super grandmaster who's 27, 2800, if the move queen takes g6 wins for white, they don't allow that. Because they see checks and captures. So when Kramnik beat Aronian, and Kramnik was sacking all of his pieces, people were like, wow, he beat Aronian doing that. Aronian should stop that. But he couldn't stop it, right? So that's why that game was so highly thought of. Obviously, he didn't walk his king up the board and sack his, well, he did sack his queen, Kramnik, but he had like mate and two.
Yeah.
Mate's more important. So those were considered the 3 best games of last year. But this game reminds everybody of Nigel Short. So Nigel probably thought it was the best. Like, yeah, it's like my game. And as I told before in the lectures, but you guys weren't here. If you were here, you weren't listening. There's a school you've never heard of. That means they've heard of it. Called Georgia Tech.
I heard that.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you've heard of Nigel Short. Right? And what do they have in common? Only I know. Also Nigel knows. And you know. Right. Nigel has a daughter. And she's dating and living with a guy. And he just got a job as a professor at Georgia Tech. And they live in England or whatever. And they're here now. And they're living in Atlanta because he's teaching at Georgia Tech. So Nigel Short's daughter lives in Atlanta. And Nigel Short talked to me on the internet and said, dude, my daughter lives in Atlanta now. And he explained the situation. And I want to go visit her at some point. Can I come give a simul at your chess center? So what does that mean?
He's coming to his chess den.
Yeah, he's going to come here and give a simul, and you're going to beat him.
Yes.
Right?
When?
Exactly. Yeah, whenever he visits his daughter.
Oh.
He doesn't know when. But he's not going to not visit his daughter. It's his daughter. Right?
No.
So then that's the way the world works. You're like, why is Magnus Carlsen here? And you're like, oh, because his sister is doing this, and he went with her. And you're like, what? He's in my town? That stuff happens all the time. people walk in our chest and we're like, why are you here? Oh, my friend's here. And some guy who's 2,400 and he's visiting. So yeah, Nigel will be here this year at some point and try to have him give a lecture, a simul. And maybe if he lectures, he'll show you the game he won. You'll be like, yeah, we know that game.
Oh.
Right? And then you'll be like, did you know Tiger used your system to win? He'll be like, yeah, I know that game. Yeah. It'll be a love fest. You guys never know everything, right? Yeah. All right. And what did Gene Wilder say when he was alive?
Nope.
After he died, he didn't say it anymore.
Oh.
Have you heard of Willy Wonka?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's Willy Wonka.
He is?
Yeah, not the one you saw, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Oh, not that movie. The original from the 70s.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
The good one.
I saw that one too.
You saw the good one?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Gene Wilder, the guy who plays Willy Wonka.
Oh,
He was in a movie, yeah, he died about a year ago. He was in a movie you never heard of called Young Frankenstein. And he was teaching a class. And when the class ended, he said, class is dismissed.